This is going to be a fairly short teaching tonight, and like I said last week, the whole point of this is me basically saying, do it. You've been taught, do it now. Like, it's not going to do us very much good to just kind of keep this information in the recesses of our mind. And actually, if you don't do anything with it, you've almost just kind of put yourself in a worse spot, because to know the good that you're supposed to do and to not do it is sin. And so, no pressure, but you guys kind of dug yourself into a hole with this course. You're responsible now, is what I'm saying. So one of the concepts that we started out with that I want us just to continue to reflect upon is that eternity has actually already started. We are in the midst of eternity right now. A lot of times the way that we talk in our Christian type of vocabulary, when we get to eternity, well, we're right here in the midst of it right now. And I think the first step for us really recognizing how vital and important every moment is to recognize that our life is but a vapor. James 4, chapter 4, verse 14 says, "Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away." We get this concept with money. When we have just a little bit of money in the bank, we scrounge to make that work. We make every cent count. But it's just not as immediate when it comes to time. I think I'm 33. Is that about right, Sarah? 33 or am I 32? I'm one of those two ages. And Lord willing, he says, 70 years, 80 due to strength. Like, maybe I'm about a third of the way through if I really do this well. Or I could walk out and get hit by a car tomorrow. Who knows exactly how this is all going to go down? But it's not just so in my face that time is so short. Time is of the essence. And so keeping that in our mind, that really in eternity past to eternity, present and future, this is just a vapor, really helps us to cherish every single moment. And knowing that every single decision that we make right now actually has an eternal outcome. There are no kind of flippant moments that we just kind of live by. I believe that everything that we do, it's affecting eternity one way or the other. It has an eternal consequence. 2 Corinthians 5:10 says, "For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may be recompensed for his deeds in the body, according to what he has done, whether good or bad." Now, saying this, I feel a little strange, because I'm like, man, this is kind of like intense what I'm saying. Like, every single moment is valuable, and don't let a second go by without using it for the Lord. And I hope throughout the course of this time that we've had together, you realize that I believe strongly in rest. I believe in family time. I believe in hanging out. We're doing an ice cream party after tonight. Like, I think that is all unto the Lord. But we just want to make sure that we're not just wasting time without there being a purpose behind it. That is really what I'm talking about. So we all have this wonderful gift of grace. But one thing that I really want to caution everybody, specifically in the use of our time, is grace is not permission. Meaning, because God will forgive you if you use your time inadequately or if you fall into a certain sin, that doesn't give you permission to go forward with that sin. I've had this happen multiple times in my own personal life, where that's kind of been the backdrop of me making some bad decisions in life. And I'm ashamed of that. I don't want to take advantage of the grace of God. We're about to celebrate Easter. God, Christ on the cross, dripping blood. And I'm just going to kind of flippantly say, oh, he'll forgive me, so I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. We don't have permission for that. One of the thoughts that terrifies me the most, and I literally mean this, that I am afraid of, is regretting how I will look back at the end of my life. I want to do everything I can now so that when I do meet Jesus, I'm not coming with years and years of waste. I'm not coming with all this regret. I forget what session it was, but the saying by the preacher that I really, really love, Mike Bickle, "Shock me now, God, don't shock me then." Like, let me know the areas of my life right now while I still have time to change, while I still have time to grow, because guess what? Once my heart stops beating, I don't have a second chance at this thing. Like, this one life is what we're given. And this one life is going to determine eternity for us and for other people. That's the heart of this whole course. And that should get us really thinking about not only our years, but our months and our weeks and our days and our hours and our minutes. And dare I even say our seconds. That's what it all kind of comes down to. I don't know about y'all, but I struggle a little bit with living in the now. I'm a visionary type of a person, so I usually am thinking like 5, maybe 10 years out on what things are going to be, how things are going to look, and there can be some benefit to that, but it can also be a really big distraction. I know a lot of other people, and I've struggled with this as well, who really kind of dwell in the past, have a lot of regrets, kind of live out of that place too. Well, here's the problem. If we have, I can't say that metaphor in here. Anyways, if we have 1 foot in the present and 1 foot in the past, we aren't doing anything right now in the present. And this very second, like tick, tock, like these seconds that are going by right now, that's all that we have the power to really affect and change. Yes, we can plan, but just like the Lord said, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will care for itself, and you don't know if you're going to go to this city or that city, say if the Lord wills. We can plan, which I think, as I've stated in this course, is a very good thing to do. But really, the only time that we can ever affect our life is in the present moment. Past focus, it often results in 2 different things. One would be shame for the mistakes that you've made. And I've been in that place where I've made mistakes. Man, I talked to Sarah today about something that happened 8 years ago that I was feeling depressed about today. Like, I could feel that same sort of feeling, and I was like, what in the world is going on? So I understand that. But there's another side of what focusing on the past does. And I've seen this, unfortunately, in a lot of dear Christian brothers and sisters, is they kind of just rest on their laurels. They rest on their previous accomplishments. I've been there, done that. I ran that race. Now it's time for someone else to step in. I'm going to kind of hang out and play golf every day. I don't dislike golf. Golf's fine. But what are we doing in our current situation to really make impact and change? So those are the 2 dangers of living in the past. Living in the future, you also got 2 things that you're worrying about. One is just anxiety. To just think about the future all the time, what could be, what could happen. A lot of times, at least in me, that sparks some anxiety and worry. Another thing that it does is it builds these outlandish expectations, which guess what? Eventually, most of the time, don't come to pass and then leave me feeling depressed because it didn't happen when God was never wanting me to be sitting there and dwelling and thinking and pressing into that in the first place. So, in saying all of this, there's a lot of benefit in reflecting on our past in the sense of learning from our previous mistakes, learning from the good things that we've done. We talked about that when we talked about evaluation. And there's also really good things about planning for the future. But realizing that both of those areas are almost not reality. This very moment that we're living right now is the only thing that we can really use to affect anything. Philippians chapter 3, 13 and 14, this is Paul. He says, "Brethren, I do not regard myself as having laid hold of it yet, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead, I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus." Paul was letting everything from the past be the past. He was pressing on to the upward call of God. Matthew 6:34, "So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will care for itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." I've kind of thought, Jesus, that's kind of a pessimistic statement there. Like, what do you mean each day should have enough trouble? Like, aren't we supposed to be living in joy and stuff? But it's the concept of it. If we're really living in this present moment, we are going to be faced with enough situations that our human frame, the way that God's equipped us, can actually deal with today in the present. We're not equipped to deal with things a year from now and start worrying about them now like it's going to somehow affect that. To focus our energy, all of our energy on this very moment, that will be the only thing that makes a difference in this life. All right, Roman numeral 3, living without remorse. If you guys haven't read this book, I would suggest reading really anything by Piper. I really like the guy, John Piper. This one's called Don't Waste Your Life. And I just wanted to read this excerpt because I think it really explains kind of the heart of what I'm trying to get across tonight. So this is John Piper talking. For me as a boy, one of the most gripping illustrations my fiery father used was the story of a man converted in old age. The church had prayed for this man for decades. He was hard and resistant, but this time, for some reason, he showed up when my father was preaching. At the end of the service, during a hymn, to everyone's amazement, he came and took my father's hand. They sat down together on the front pew of the church as the people were dismissed. God opened his heart to the gospel of Christ, and he was saved from his sins and given eternal life. But that did not stop him from sobbing and saying, as the tears ran down his wrinkled face, and what an impact it made on me to hear my father say this through his own tears. I've wasted it. I've wasted it. This was the story that gripped me more than all the stories of young people who died in car wrecks before they were converted. The story of an old man weeping that he had wasted his life. In those early years, God awakened me in a fear and a passion not to waste my life. The thought of coming to my old age and saying through tears, I've wasted it, was a fearful and horrible thought to me. I want to guide us just really quickly here in a little exercise. I'm not going to give you too much time, so you might want to do this at a different time too. But I want you guys to all just picture yourself right now. You're in your old age. Some of us don't have to imagine that. You're in your old age. You're rocking on a rocking chair on the porch. Sorry, I couldn't resist. What? Think back. Really think right now through your life. Even right now, the way that you're living on a daily basis. What would you regret when you see Jesus? Take a second. What would you regret? I don't know about you, but there's definitely some things that come to my mind that I would regret. Not things in the past that I can't change. That stuff we got to get over. We've got to let go. We've got to move forward. But stuff right now that I can change. Here is the awesome news, guys. This is great. There is still hope for change. You don't have to feel this regret. You don't have to experience that. You have time to make a change in your life. I don't care if you're 30, whatever I am, or in your 80s, or in between. We have an opportunity to actually remove these future regrets from our life. Like, what a gift to know that. That can happen. I get excited about that. Don't waste your life. Our days are numbered. Job 14:5 says, since his days are determined, the number of his months is with you, and his limits you have set so that he cannot pass. I was watching this movie the other day. Had Justin Timberlake in it, strangely enough. I didn't know he was an actor, but he was in this movie. And it was a movie where instead of currency, like cash, it was time. And so what would happen is when they hit 25 years old, they were all given 1 year of time. And it was like this time stamp that was on the inside of their arm. And instead of trading money or working for money, you worked for extra time. And if you didn't make that extra time and you didn't continue to refill and replenish that time, when the clock hit 0, game over. And so it wasn't really a good movie, but it really was something that made me think, like, wow, could I imagine if that's how it is? But then wait a second, that's kind of how we all live right now anyways. Now, we don't have the timestamp on our arm that tells us when that day's done, but if God has numbered our days, there is a time appointed for each one of us to die and to meet our Maker. To have that in the back of my mind is going like, okay, every day that goes by, that's one less day that I have to do what God's called me to do. These are things that I don't think a lot of people really think about. And I hope I'm not depressing you guys with it. What I'm trying to do is say, it's short, it's numbered. We have this specific amount of time. Don't waste it. Let us consider the end from the beginning. Psalm 39:4-5 says, Lord, make me to know my end. And what is the extent of my days? Let me know how transient I am. Behold, you have made my days as handbreadths, and my life as nothing in your sight. Surely every man at his best is a mere breath. Really take time to consider the end from where you're at right now. What are we going to do from here till there? Sometimes people think that making a difference in this life is all about like the big, memorable things that we do. And I really kind of disagree with that. We're all going to be given points in our life where we're able to kind of be the hero, kind of champion something, really stand out, make a big difference. But where I really think our strength lies and where a majority of our eternal benefits are going to be derived from is from our day-to-day living. Just normal, mundane, changing diapers, cooking dinner, mowing lawns, that type of stuff. How are we going to live those days out? Are we going to live that all, every minute of it, to the glory of God? We have that opportunity. Our motivation, our heart posture behind what we do, I think matters a lot more than even what we do sometimes. What's your posture? What's your motivation? Why are you doing what you're doing? There's a lot of really good things that are being done by people who aren't going to get anything from it from the Lord at the end because they're not doing it for the Lord. They're doing it for themselves, to glorify themselves, to elevate themselves, become more popular. All right, we're winding down here. I wanted, if you flip over to your last page, I wanted to just quickly take us on a little bit of a journey of where we started to where we're at now. Kind of reminisce with me a little bit over these past 12 weeks. We started out by talking about finding success in God's eyes and how God views success so much differently than the world does. The world has a very outward system of success. Whatever you can produce, whatever you can see, that is what we base success upon. Well, God, He determines success mostly on what you can't see, the invisible realm, the stuff going on in the inside of your heart. We talked about pursuing eternal rewards for God's glory, that there are actually rewards up there for us to have, and that the more holy, more righteous deeds, the more things that we accomplish for the Lord here on earth actually mean something. We're not just going to get up there and everyone's going to be on equal turf. Now, I don't think there's going to be jealousy and all of that stuff going on, but there is going to be differentiations between the level of people's glory. I really believe that. Week 3, we talked about discerning your life vision. Getting a life vision if you don't have it, because that is the guiding light that we're all heading towards. I was talking with a pastor today, and we were talking about these discipleship groups that we're about to start here, and he was talking about leadership with these discipleship groups, and he says, you know what, Tyler, you're really going to want to be careful at the very start of this who you put into leadership in these different areas, because at the start of something, just a little bit of a course correction like that, it's going to shoot you in a very different direction. While if you're, going down the trip for a while, if you do a little course correction, whatever, you can kind of get back on track and everything, but just a little bit at the start can really mess some things up. And it kind of just reminded me, our life vision, that is like the destiny, that point that we're trying to reach to. And in our life, we have that opportunity to keep that as our focal point in just an everyday life, everything that we're doing. We talked in week 4 about a biblical approach to time management, how the world sees time management, and how we, as the church, as Christians, should view time management. We talked about having the first things first. We had a wonderful song given to us that really proclaimed those things. But the first commandment, to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind and all of your strength. And the second being like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. That's it, guys. Like, that's what we're shooting for. Everything else has to take a back seat to those two things. Halfway through the course, we started talking about cultivating a consistent devotional life and just how important it was to day in, day out, be connecting with the Lord. Like I shared here before, we're not meant to go very long without that connecting point with God, whether it's reading the word, prayer, whatever it is. That consistency is really where a lot of our growth can begin to develop when it happens on a regular basis. Week 7, we did the daunting time log presentation. Where do you stand? Evaluating how you're currently spending your time so that you can see the areas that, hey, I need some improvement here. Oh, I'm doing good here. To really be able to map out the future on how you want to spend your time. We went into priorities for the season in week 8, recognizing that, yes, we might have this same vision that we're all heading to, but there's unique seasons in our life, and at times there's going to be different things that the Lord's highlighting, and we don't want to just keep our gaze so focused on that end point that we block everything else out. But we want to be able to recognize the seasons of life that God's put us in and be able to obediently follow him each and every season, because it's like the connect the dot game. We don't just go from dot number 1 to dot number 100. God takes us on a specific journey, 1, 2, 3, all the way to get to that place. And God is so much more interested, I've realized, in the process than the destination oftentimes. Week 9, we talked about really putting the rubber to the road with all this stuff that we had talked about before, and developing a maintainable schedule. What are you actually going to do Monday morning at 8 a.m.? Like, really getting focused on figuring out how you're going to be spending your time. Week 10, we talked about focus, how our culture is not conducive to focus at all. We've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, we've got, all these marketing things going on all the time that are vying for our attention. It's very difficult to remain focused. I don't know if anyone remember, but one of the keys that I said having a consistent devotional life or really connecting with God is to just get that phone out of your presence, because my goodness, that thing is distracting. All right, last week we talked about humility and unlocking your spiritual potential. And what we really came to recognize was that pride is the root of pretty much every sin. And so if we really want to live a focused life, pride is one of those things that can quickly rob us of our destiny. And like Philippians 2, we want to have the attitude of Christ and walking in all humility. And then this week I've shared with you a little bit about why we learned all this the past 11 weeks. To what end? And my question is to you now, what are you going to do with this information? This could very easily be a 12-week course that you enjoyed and you're on with your life. Or this could be a turning point for you. This could be a point where you recognize, hey, there's some areas that still need adjusting here. I need to really get serious about this. Let these things really impact you, these thoughts of eternity. Judy's been studying about heaven for a long time now. We were having a conversation. If we really started to understand a little bit more what heaven's going to be like, I think we'd be a lot more motivated to live holy here on the earth. We got to embrace the things that we cannot see. Faith, the assurance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That's where we're living.